All right, Pastor Mark Driscoll here. Today we're going to talk about the southern border. I was recently at a Trump rally, and President Trump brought up a lot of Border Patrol. Current informer thanked them and said that he would, if elected, he'll be adding 10,000 Border Patrolmen. He'll be giving them a $10,000 signing bonus and a 10% raise. Everybody cheered. I was talking to one of our state senator candidates as well. He said that morale is at an all-time low among border agents and that depression and even suicide is at an all-time high because they just can't do their job, and it is causing tremendous angst. So I've got an expert with me. Christopher, go ahead and introduce yourself, a little bit about your background, and I want to have a conversation, not a political conversation, but just a personal conversation about the border. You've been there. You're an eyewitness. You know exactly what's happening. Maybe you can cut through all the nonsense and just tell us what's going on and how we should vote as a result.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Mark. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on the show and talk. I stay within my wheelhouse. So I will give a little background so hopefully people know that I kind of know what I'm saying. So I started in law enforcement when I was 18 back in New York. I am originally from New York. I say coffee the right way. I started in New York State Corrections. I worked at a fun little place called Sing Sing. I realized that being a correction officer really sucked. And if I curse, I apologize. I know this is you're a pastor and all that, but
no, it's okay.
I'm an Irish cop.
It's real faith, not perfect faith. It's all good, brother.
I really don't give a crap. So, anyways, I became a cop in New York, a detective. I went to the Treasury Department as a federal officer, a federal police officer, and then I went to the Border Patrol as a federal agent in 1996, 97 area time. And I was actually under Bill Clinton. He actually did fairly well of trying to reconstitute or add to the Border Patrol. He hired a lot of agents. Now he'd probably be considered a conservative with the way things are going. So I spent 36 years in law enforcement total, almost 22 years as a Border Patrol agent on the southern border, San Diego sector, Imperial Beach Border Patrol Station. But I've also worked in Ajo, Arizona, Douglas, Arizona, El Centro, California, and other areas on details where I was sent out. But my home station has been Imperial Beach Border Patrol Station, which is from the ocean to San Isidro, if you know the area in San Diego. I was also a union representative. And one of the things you mentioned about Donald Trump, we were the first union to support him, the National Border Patrol Council. I was an elected official, and I was also director of legislative and political affairs for most of the area in California out here, which meant I spent a lot of time in D.C., probably more than I wanted to. And I worked with senators and congressmen about the various issues that we faced. I've said to congressmen and senators for years, this shouldn't be a partisan issue. It should not even be a bipartisan issue. It should be a nonpartisan issue. Securing our borders is a fundamental thing that every nation state has a right to do. No nation state has long lasted if they've not been able to secure their borders. Just go ask the Roman Empire. If you can't secure your borders, you don't last as a nation state. And we are woefully past not securing our borders. It is open season on our borders. We know it works. We supported Donald Trump, and he supported us. That's why we supported him. He told us to our faces, National Border Patrol Council, I'm going to consider you guys the absolute experts on securing the border. I'm not going to listen to a La Raza attorney. I'm not going to listen to a Harvard professor. I'm going to listen to you guys. And he did. He didn't just say the words. He actually did it. And I'll give you an example on that real quick. He said he wanted a wall. He wanted an actual wall. And they built several prototypes that were concrete. We said we don't want that. We need to be able to see through them. We need to see our adversaries, because what the bad guys do, and make no mistake about this, Pastor Mark, is that the cartels run everything on the southwest border. Anything that's illicit or illegal, be it people, be it narcotics, be it money, be it weapons, is all through the cartels. They either own it directly or you pay what's called the plaza. You pay to operate in the area, so you answer to them. So they own the southern borders. What they do is they ambush us. They attack us all the time. We're the most attacked federal agency out there with assaults. We get rocked all the time. I took a rock to my head from a smuggler. I was out of work for almost 3 years with a traumatic brain injury. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So we need to see through the fence to see our adversaries. They throw Molotov cocktails at us. They throw rocks. They shoot at us. I've been shot at many times. We had to sit in armored vehicles in certain areas because we were shot at so often. So we said we need to be able to see through. We need a fence. And that's what we got. He listened to us. So we know what secures the border. We know it does. It works. It worked under Trump. Probably the best it's ever been. But then the cartels figured out something. They figured out how to game the asylum system. And that's what's killing us right now. the asylum system. It's a beautiful system. Don't get me wrong. There's nobody in the Border Patrol that I know of that wants to get rid of the asylum system. But it was meant really if your country was actually committing genocide against you, you can come here as your last refuge and be safe. But the cartels in 2018 figured out how to game the system. So what they did is they started sending up those caravans. The first caravans came up in late summer of 2018. Now, we have intelligence units in the Border Patrol. They're some of the finest you'll ever see. I'd put them up against CIA, anybody. They're that good. They found out that the first caravans that were coming up were sourced and sponsored and organized by two different groups. Soros-backed groups, money and organization, and Venezuelan intelligence. And if you got Venezuelan intelligence involved, that means Cuban intelligence, which means Russian intelligence. There's a lot of nation states out there that want to do harm to our country for various reasons and through various means. And if you could disrupt our fiber of our country, our societal fabric, that's a win for them. So these cartels were coming, these caravans were coming up. And what we found was that they were on a script. Depending what geographic area of the world you were coming from, you got a specific script. And I'll give you an example of that. I arrested a guy personally. I tell personal stories because that way I know they're true. I arrested a guy from China, Fujian province, and I'm questioning him through an interpreter. And we use AT&T. This is not a plug for AT&T. They charge us an ungodly amount of money per minute. But we use AT&T interpreters on a speakerphone. They can provide somebody who speaks every language of the world. And I'm questioning this Chinese guy. Why do you want asylum? What's your credible fear if you get returned to China? I'm a Christian. They're persecuting me. Okay, we know that's true. I'm a Christian. I'm not a good one. Ask my wife that. I have to work on it. But I know the central tenets of my faith. So I asked him, tell me about Jesus Christ. And he kind of looks up in the air and goes, he was a friend of Buddha's. Well, they lived about 1,000 years apart. And I said, yeah, I don't think JC and Buddha were cracking beers together. You're lying. He had no answer to that. He did not know a thing about Christianity. So therefore, he's not a Christian. Therefore, he's lying. He was given a script because he wanted to come here from the smugglers, the cartels, to say, I'm a Christian. And it works for different areas of the world. I had a guy from Nepal who said, the Maoist insurrection. I said, but that was put down 5 years ago before I just caught you. So your country's fine now. Try again. And he just looked at me. Once he's off script, he doesn't know what to say. So we found that this is the reason. We are catching people from 170 countries from around the world. Are you telling me that every one of them needs asylum? We got a guy a little while ago from Japan. It's our first world nation. You need asylum for Japan? I had a news crew down at the border not too long ago, and I said, you'll never see anybody from Costa Rica. It's such a great country. In fact, Canadians and Americans expat themselves there. The first guy we talked to in Spanish from Costa Rica. So they're gaming the system, and they're coming in by the millions. All they have to do is step foot on U.S. soil and say, I have a credible fear, and we allow them in. So what Trump said, how do we stop this? And we told him what would work, but we didn't think it would ever happen. And he made it happen. He made a deal with AMLO, the president of Mexico at the time, who was a socialist, and using carrot and stick, and there were some very powerful sticks involved in this. He made a deal with them, and it came to be known as the Remain in Mexico program. Technically, it was a migrant protection protocols. Even the UN and international law says, once you're out of a country and you're safe somewhere, you don't get to go hopping around looking for another place that you like better. That's it. So basically said, okay, you're coming from China and you're claiming that you're being persecuted for your religion, you're a Christian, you're in Mexico, you're safe. You are now going to wait in line, which is a very American thing. It's very fair. You wait your turn, and then you'll be heard by an asylum hearing officer. And then he'll adjudicate whether you meet the terms and conditions of the law that says you get asylum. That was working. The numbers dropped by 90%. First day in office, this administration, this president, undid that with an executive order. And so now they come to the United States, they're granted asylum, or not granted it, they're just released pending some nebulous court date 6-7 years down the road, which they won't go to. And so they're just being released in the United States. So the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, which is a nonpartisan part of the government, and I actually admire them, they did a study several years ago. 90% won't show up for their hearings. 90% won't show up. Now, the left will tell you that, people show up. 90% of them get asylum, so it must be working. No, that's the 10% that show up. And those 10% show up because they know they have a real case. There are really people that need asylum. But 90% will not show up. They're just released. ICE can't go after them. Border Patrol can't go after them. They're released in the country. And now we have a new presidential aspirant, Kamala Harris, who I've met. I've met her in person, had a meeting with her. She wants to find a way to get them through the system and become lawfully admitted for permanent residence and then get their citizenship. That's ludicrous. They're gaming the system. by the millions, by the millions. And so also understand this, when they come through, they're not being vetted. We keep being told they're being vetted. They're not. I've been in the system. We fingerprint them. We take their photos, biometrics. But I always used to tell them, if you want to tell me your name's Mickey Mouse, by all means, tell me you're Mickey Mouse. That name will go with these fingerprints forever. But I don't know who he is. I don't know who he is. He came from a country that we have no relationship with. Venezuela's not telling us stuff. They're dumping their criminals on us. China has a great system. They're not sharing with us. And some countries have no systems. So I have to go by what he tells me. Unless he's been arrested in the U.S. before, and probably not because he's coming from Mali, Malawi, Nepal, Guatemala, he has nothing in our system. So I just have to go by what he tells me. And I'm going to give you another personal story on this, Pastor Mark. We had a guy from El Salvador, ran through the records checks, came back what we call 1040, non-derogatory. Nothing bad came up on the records checks. On the way out with an NTA, notice to appear, piece of paper that somewhere down the road he's going to appear for a hearing. He says something in Spanish. And he'd been interviewed in Spanish. And he said, boy, I thought those murders were going to cause me grief. Whoa, let's go and chat some more. Bring him back in. Have to go through the El Salvadorian consulate. Find out 5 homicides in El Salvador. We're going to walk him out the door. This is what's happening. And there's other ways that they're coming here that's should not be happening. The parole system, and if you want, we can get into that, but the parole system is being abused by this administration. So I know I talk a lot. I'm Irish. I don't shut up. So
No, we greatly appreciate it. You're a subject matter expert. So we're being told, a lot of these people are, as you said, fleeing religious persecution, political persecution. They're seeking the American dream. They're just looking for a better life for their family. They're not criminals. They're going to contribute to society. Who actually is coming over the border, and what is the credible threat?
So here's the deal. My wife's from Mexico. She's born in Guadalajara, grew up in TJ, and came to the U.S. And I was very proud to watch her become a U.S. citizen with the flag and everything she went through the process. What you're seeing, like in my station, Imperial Beach Border Patrol Station, now it was unique that we were right north of Tijuana. So there's a lot of criminal activity. But probably about 60% of the people we were arresting, were criminals. Now, I'm not saying that's the percentage across the borders. And they're coming through the northern border now, too. You mentioned the southwestern border. They're coming through the northern border now, too. They're flying up into Canada. Trudeau's lets them in, and then they come into the northern border. But I always like to be super conservative on my numbers so nobody can come back at me later on and say, oh, you said 1 million, but it was really 990,000. So I'll be super conservative in my numbers. At the very least now, we know that 10 million people have entered, been apprehended, and released in the United States. 10 million in the last 3 years and 9 months. Let's be super conservative. I said 60% in my station, but let's just say that only 10% are criminals. They're bad guys. And I'll define that. There's a big group of bad guys. So 10% are bad guys. Now, those bad guys are made up of just normal criminals, if you want to call a criminal normal criminal, gangbangers, cartel. But then you get into the really bad people. You get into terrorists, and you get into people that are actually working for other foreign nation states that hate us. Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, etc. They actually work for their intelligence services, or they work in special operations. We catch a lot of Russians and Chinese. I have pictures on the border from not too long ago of this Russian guy we call a military-age man, crew cut, well-built, buffed out, nice clothing, clean. He was Russian. Does anybody know how to say, the KGB no longer exists. They changed their names. But, the GRU, Spetsnaz, he's being released into the United States. And I'm going to follow up on that in a minute. But so the numbers are very conservative. And I believe it much higher than this. But we're going to say 10% out of those 10 million. 10 million is conservative. We're way over that. But 10 million. That's 1 million bad people we've allowed into this country in the last 3 years and 9 months. Now, out of those, let's just say 10% are the real bad actors, the terrorists, the people that are operating for other foreign nation states. That's still 100,000 people that are super bad that we've allowed into this country. And we used to, at my station, we had a thing called PD transport where we used to be able to work with the police department, local police department. Can't anymore because it's a sanctuary state and they're forbidden to work with us. But we also did, one of our tasks was, we have several big military bases here in San Diego, one being Naval Air Station North Island, which is home port for 3 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. tremendously big, important naval base for the United States. We'd get called out there to assist their MPs or their security police or their DOD police that were manning the gates when they stopped somebody who was a foreign national trying to get on the base. So I get out there one day, 5 Chinese women in a vehicle, 2 up front, giggling little 20-something-year-olds, they're laughing and giggling. 2 in the back at each window, young 20-something-year-olds giggling, laughing. 1 middle-aged woman in the back, stone-faced, stone cold, just looking around at everything. So I don't want to get into operational security, but they also sent a special agent from the NCIS out to assist. We're looking at them, and we're going to start running records checks, and nothing's going to come back on them because we don't have anything on them. And we looked at each other, and we both just said, she's Chinese intelligence. That's what she is. She's there. They're probing our bases, and they're doing that even more and more. I've caught Saudi Arabians trying to get on our bases. So there are people from foreign nation states that are not friendly to us trying to get onto our military bases. They're probing us. They're trying to gain intel. And that's being allowed because they're coming across the border in the millions. And so you have some bad actors. Look at Aurora. We have a family member who's stationed out there, and I won't even say what branch of the military he's in, but he's stationed out there. They've been given warnings about certain areas not to go into. That's ludicrous and repellent that in the United States, our U.S. military is being told in the United States city areas not to go into because of that Tren de Aragua, which is that Venezuelan gang. And this happened to us before in 1980. Carter was a good man. I don't think he was a good president, but he was a good man in his heart. But he had what was called the Muriel boat lift. And they let out tens of thousands of people from Cuba. Castro let them. And he emptied his prisons and his asylums, insane asylums, let them out to come to the United States. I dealt with them as a correction officer. And he dumped them on us. And Venezuela is doing the same thing. Venezuela won't take their people back. If they're convicted of a crime, we want to deport them. Venezuela won't take them back. I have hopes that if Trump wins the election, he's going to find a way to make them take them back. But you have serious, violent criminals who deal in sex trafficking and other illegal areas coming to this country, and we're just welcoming them in. They fly them in. They're one of 4 countries that's part of this: Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. 10,000 a month are allowed to come in here. They're flying in, no paperwork. Go to certain airports. My wife did a volunteer for a non-governmental organization. I won't say their name. I have no respect for them. But she had to stop doing it because the one day she saw, there was like 12 or 13-year-old girl. A guy comes in, he's like 22, 23, tatted up, says, "That's my daughter." Didn't know her name, but they released her to that guy. This is happening left and right. And there's the government, U.S. government is behind this too. They support the NGOs. We do it ourselves. HHS has lost track of about 360,000 kids where they've given to people that we don't know. Now, I will say to Trump, we were able to start a program, a test program, where we swabbed the inside of people's mouths for DNA testing. It was not kept on record. It wasn't done for enforcement purposes. It was to say that little girl or that little boy does belong to you. There is a familial relationship. That's been stopped under this administration. Why? Why would you stop that? So that's what's happening now, Pastor Mark, and that is the truth.
And so who's paying for the flights from these 4 nations? Is our government or their government?
Our government and NGOs are doing that, or the cartels are paying for it. But they get here and they're released under parole, protected status. The parole laws, and this is not the parole you're used to where a criminal gets out of prison early on parole. What this was, it was set up, it was originally the Attorney General, and then it became the Secretary of Homeland Security. It says on a case-by-case basis. And the way we were taught at the Border Patrol Academy was, here's an example. You're in Mexico City in DFA. You have some brain tumor, and only this one medical center in like LA treats it well, and you have a chance of living. You put in for parole. Now, the Attorney General then and the Homeland Security, the Secretary of Homeland Security is not actually reading it. So he's got an underling that does that. But you're approved on a case-by-case basis. So you go to LA, you have the surgery, you recuperate, you go back to Mexico. They're now doing it in groups of 10,000 in a block. That's against the law, and nobody's calling them on that. That's not what the parole system was made for. But they're letting them in 10,000 at a time, and they are flying here. And then you have the CBP One app. So this administration is trying to fudge numbers. So if you come into parole, you're not counted as being here illegally. If you use the CBP One app and put in your name and stuff and come here, you set up something that down the road you'll have a hearing. You enter to the port of entry. you're not considered here illegally, even though you just came in and you're being released and we'll never see you again. So they're playing numbers game with these things instead of just saying, here's how many people we apprehended that came here illegally. And understand this too, even with amnesty, if you jump the fence, you don't go to the port of entry because they don't want to wait even at the port of entry. They jump the fence and they'll sit there and wait for us to catch them. That is still against the law. The amnesty is one thing, but you just violated the law. It's called 8 USC, 8 United States Code, 1325, entry without inspection. They could be charged with that. They're not. They're given a pass on that. So we have the entries that are just skyrocketing. But the thing, too, that should really scare people is what we call gotaways. So people that we did not catch. And there's two classes of gotaways, ones that we know are gotaways. And we have a good way of figuring that out. And I'll give you an example. We have sensors all over the place. This is not operational security. The cartels know it. We have seismic sensors and other sensors. So if a sensor goes off, it's near the fence, say, somebody jumped the fence. By the time we get there, and we're short-staffed, you mentioned this before, Trump wants to hire a lot more. We're 3,000 below our statutory limit. We're below what Congress has said is our lowest number. We're about 3,000 below that. So we're shorthand. But so you get there, and we track people, and we're really good at tracking people. We're probably one of the best agencies ever. Other agencies ask us to help find missing kids. We track people. So we follow their sign, be it footprints or whatever sign they left on the ground. And so we figure out that's 12 people. And it comes to a road, and then it disappears. Well, we know those 12 got picked up, and they're gone. So we'll count that as 12 gotaways. Or one of our scopes, infrared scopes, sees a group, and nobody's available to work that group, and then they get out of their picture frame. We count them as gotaways. Now, there's also gotaways that we don't even know about. We know there's people that we don't even see anything about. But the rule of thumb is about 30%. Our metrics suggest that's very close to what it really is. So if you want to be conservative, just say 25%, but it's higher than that with gotaways. So what do you think 25% of 10 million is? So those are gotaways. And these are people that don't want to just cross the border, stop, sit down, and say, hey, come get me. I want asylum. These are people that don't want us to know who they are. So those are people that should scare you.
Absolutely terrifying. What do you think? What's happening to the 365,000 children that have been released into the country, minors, many apparently not to any family or kin? I mean, all of this is under the guise of compassion and empathy and love and hospitality. What's happening to those kids?
So my stepmom, who I love, she's a liberal. She went to Woodstock. She worked for the Carter administration. And she'll tell me, we have to stop this, this human trafficking, this sex trafficking. And I'm like, but it's all part and parcel. There's not like one group that's specifically, that's my boutique. I handle 13-year-old girls. So if you want to stop it, you have to secure the border. We would catch young girls with Plan B type abortion facts after they were raped. So I have a problem with their parents making sure that they're going up for some reason, but they're giving them these pills, Plan B pills. I've seen rape trees, and that's a tree, and I've seen it first. I have pictures of it, where the cartel, the coyotes will rape all the women in the group, and they'll throw the braziers up on the tree, and you'll see 12, 15 braziers hanging from the branches to prove a point. We own this. We own everything. So what I have to think is that most of these kids, a large number, larger than we even want to contemplate, are going into some type of slavery, either be working. Look, Tyson Foods, there's a reason that even conservative businesses want open borders. It's not just for cheap labor. Tyson Foods got caught having 14-year-olds working for them. So you're going to go into that kind of thing, or you're going to be sex trafficked. And I firmly believe that there are more people than we want to even contemplate in this country that are supportive of that like the fact that there's young boys and young girls coming here that are going to be sold and used in sex trafficking. And it's I have daughters, I have grandchildren. It's truly horrifying to me, and why people that claim that they are tolerant and they're open think that this is okay. Because this wasn't happening under the last administration to any extent. I mean, it's always going to happen unless you can hermetically seal the border. But the game plan is to make it so rare that you're saving other kids. And we're not doing that. And I wonder why our government right now thinks it's okay to hand kids over, to literally stop DNA testing to make sure that you really are the Tia or the mother or the father or brother, older brother, sister, and saying, we're not doing that anymore. Why? I just want someone to ask, why would this administration stop doing that? It was not for enforcement purposes. We're not keeping a database. It was just test her, test him. Is he really her uncle? No, he's not. Then you don't get her. Why do we stop doing that?
I'm with you. I'm a dad and I'm a grandpa. I mean, just horrifying. And how much of this is laid at the feet of Kamala Harris, vice president, as her responsibility? Because she's trying to run right now as sort of the candidate of change, which is mesmerizing. And she's repeatedly saying that, you know, Republicans are holding up bills that would give the president or the vice president the ability to close the border. What burden does she bear and what authority does she currently have, even as vice president?
Well, of course, if she's any type of real vice president or leader, she's going to talk with Biden and say, hey, we need to kind of fix this. They had the authority to fix it. It was not broken. They broke it. They could unbreak it, if you will. They could fix it. And now I don't like executive orders too much, but they could fix it by executive orders. They kept saying that, oh, we can't do anything unless you pass this bill, which was a horrible bill. It allowed 5,000 people per day or whatever. It was horrible. It was going to like enshrine millions can come in before we do anything. So rightfully so, people said that's not a good bill. They have the power right now to start fixing things. For whatever reason, now they're going to tell us that the border is great. It's not. It's the worst it's ever been. Since the history of the Border Patrol started in the 1920s, 1924, to now, it is the worst it's ever been. People coming from around the world, 170 nations, entering basically illegally. They could fix it with executive orders. Now they're starting to do a few little things around the edges to say, look, we're doing something. But that you had 3.5 years to do this. So it really is a sham on her part. I've met her. I've sat down with her for the union. I had a night. She hugged me. She said, hey, cuz. We have the same last name. I said, you're Irish. She laughed. I'm not surprised she has to claim that she's Irish at one time or another. She was very nice. But the hypocrisy I saw with her, and I don't want to get into politics, but I will say this because everybody talks about Kamala this or this, that. I've met her. I was at a law enforcement officer's funeral out here. A cop was shot and killed. She showed up. She was Attorney General for California at the time. She spoke glowingly about law enforcement, just was so effusive in her praise. Not 10 days later, I was at another thing, a huge union thing, and I was representing AFGE, American Federation of Government Employees, which is pretty liberal. She bashed law enforcement, bashed them. Now, I understand, depending on the group you're with, you might change the main crux of your argument or your discussion a little bit, but this was 180 degrees. This was the height of hypocrisy. And she's been called a lot of names, and I don't get into that, but she is a political whore. She will go whatever the wind blows. If she really thought being a super conservative right now would get her elected, she'd probably swing that way. But I can't support her because she, with Biden, has the opportunity to fix what they broke, and they refuse to do so. And you can't tell me that they don't know. Unless they're in some kind of bubble where the people around them are totally keeping them in the dark, she has to know how horrible the border is. You brought up the morale of the Border Patrol. It's never been worse. When I was a Border Patrol agent, our mandatory retirement age is 57. And people are like, wow, why do you get to retire so early? Well, I weighed myself one time, and then I put all my battle rattle on. And I'm schlepping up and down mountains at 50-some years old with 55 pounds on me. There's a reason that we have to, in federal law enforcement, retire at 57. But people used to come up to me, including chiefs in the Border Patrol, asking the union to try to get waivers for them to stay longer. Nobody's doing that anymore. They're retiring as soon as they can. Once you're 50, if you got 25 years in, you can retire. So these guys, these senior agents and bosses are all bailing because they feel that they're actually working for the cartel, that they're the northern part of the smuggling apparatus, where the cartel used to have to hire people to transport them, load vehicles. We're doing that now. We pick you up at the border, we bring you to the station, we feed you, we give you showers and all that, we process you, we release you, and we bring you to an NGO, a non-governmental organization, or we bring you to the airport, or we dump you at a train station or a trolley station. So we're transporting you, we're housing you, so we're a load house now, and we're moving you further into your entry into the United States. And I talk to guys all the time. I'm still on the border. I still have bosses call me because they tell me stuff that they can't say to the press. They're horrified. They feel that they are now part of the smuggling organization. And they're retiring. And they're bailing. I've never seen guys who, not like TV or Hollywood says that, it's so easy to be a cop or a law enforcement. You could be, second grade and that's it. It's pretty hard to become law enforcement in most places. So to become a federal agent is pretty difficult. All the background checks, the psychological tests, all that. I've never seen people, if they're going from one law enforcement agent to another, I've seen that before often. But I know guys who have told me, I'm bailing. I'm good with my hands. I'll be a carpenter. They're leaving it because they can't stand what they're doing. And a lot of our guys, and I mean men and women, especially out here, are prior military. I've worked 5 law enforcement agencies in my 36 years. This one, I am so proud of the men and women. I mean, I'm proud of all the people I work with, but these guys, these men and women, they believe in the Constitution. They believe in this country. And they're horrified what they're being forced to do. And the cartels use this too. So they'll push a group of 200 people across in one area. So we have to pull people from 50 miles away to come and transport them and process them. Now the border's totally open. And now they send through the high value stuff. Narcotics, fentanyl is flooding through. Bad people, that's when they're putting them through. So the morale is shot. People are leaving the Border Patrol as soon as they can, going wherever else they can go. So we are about 3,000 below where we should be. And so we're shorthanded. The morale is shot. These people want to protect their country. And I used to tell congressmen, senators, I have one of the easiest union jobs in the world. My guys, yes, we want better pay, we want all this, but the big thing, allow them to work harder. They want to secure the border. They want to protect this country. And I'll point this out. AOC and her ilk have pointed out that we're stormtroopers, we're fascists, we're racist, we're xenophobic. On the southwestern border, over 60% Hispanic. Or if you're an Anglo like me, you marry into a Hispanic family. So the guys are either born in and naturalized, or their parents are from Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Ecuador, all over the place. So it's kind of ludicrous when people on the left say, oh, these guys are these racist xenophobes. Really? Because the guy next to me is from Mexico. I had CNN on the border one time, and afterwards the director said to me, Chris, everybody had a Hispanic surname. Because they were able to talk to the people, but they couldn't show their faces because we can't talk to the press. The union can, Asians can't. He said, did you set that up? I'm like, yeah, I have that much power in the Border Patrol as a union guy to assign all Hispanic named people on the border today. That's just the way it is. So these men and women want to secure our border. They want to protect the Constitution, and they want to protect the United States, and they're not being allowed to. It's a bad thing.
2 more questions, and thank you very much. It's very, very troubling, but very, very insightful. If Donald Trump doesn't win, Kamala Harris does win, what does the border and what does the country look like in 4 years?
I'll refer back to what I said earlier, that no nation state in the history of mankind can survive for any length of time without controlling its borders. So if we're going to abdicate that for whatever reason, whether it's just through misfeasance or it's actually deliberately through malfeasance, I don't think we're going to have a country as we recognize it. And I'm not talking about changing people say, oh, you don't want a brown country. I'm married to a Mexican woman. They're fantastic people, but they're coming from 170 countries. And a lot of these are countries that don't like us. And that people don't understand our democratic republic. We're not a democracy. People keep saying that we're a democratic republic or a constitutional republic. I tell people that democracy is 100 people, 51 vote, that the other 49 should die. That's what happens then. That's pure democracy. We have a democratic republic. So our democratic republic, our constitutional republic, I don't think it'll last. And I'm a Christian. I'm not a good one. I work at it. I sit down with my pastor for lunches every now and then. I don't care if we're truly a Christian country or not, that we were founded on Judeo-Christian ethics. There's no getting around that unless you want to lie about it. But we're going to have a country of people that don't care. My wife will tell you that her mother and father came here, and when they came to work their asses off. That's not happening now. A lot of people are coming here for freebies. Well, nothing's really free. That money has to come somewhere. And you're going to I truly believe you're going to kill the middle class in this country. And we're not going to have a country that we recognize. And I'm not trying to go back to, you want to go back to the 50s where women couldn't do this no. But we have a democratic republic with a constitution, and I want that to last. And I don't want us to be a country that falls apart. And I think there's a lot of nation states out there and a lot of groups that want to see, if not us totally fall apart, then become a second-rate, second-world country. And I truly think that's going to happen if we vote the wrong way. And again, I'm only talking from my wheelhouse. There's other things. If you want to take other things into account, God bless. But if this bothers you, if this makes you nervous, if it scares you, you're worried about the safety in your communities, you have to consider that when you vote.
Yeah, because we have heard a lot from the left, fear tactics, in my opinion, on existential threats to our existence, be it COVID, be it climate change. But, ultimately, the border is a truly urgent existential crisis.
I believe so.
Last question, and thank you for your time and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I know this is a bit speculative, and I know that you like to deal with conservative numbers, but from your perspective, I would like to just ask the why. Why do those who are in politics and government, why are those who are running for office, why are they not only permitting this to happen, but have architected the deconstruction of a secure border that causes this problem? What would you speculate is perhaps the motive behind this?
All right, so I'm going to break it down to maybe two groups of people. One is just naive. You have people that have been through school their whole lives. You know what our university system looks like now. You see the anti-Semitism. You see what's going on. I wanted to give this administration the benefit of doubt. Thought, okay, they surrounded themselves by people that are just naive, immature, stupid, ignorant. So I will say that there's probably some of those that really, truly think that the border's okay or it's okay what we're doing. The ones that I think have more malintent, I will, and this is speculative, I will ascribe this to a couple of things. One, people do know that these people are going to vote. They're going to vote. And if you're giving them free stuff, and you're the group of people that are giving them free stuff, they're probably going to keep voting for you. And whether they do it illegally or, again, through Kamala's talking about finding a way to legislate them in and grant them some citizenship down the road. Look, I caught a guy that had stuff on him that showed he had just voted and he was a legal alien. Nobody wanted to prosecute that. Nobody wanted to talk about it. It happens. The other thing people don't really think about is every census, we apportion congressional seats out. California lost some. New York lost some. They don't like that. So a lot are going to New York and California. They count. Trump tried to stop that. He lost, I think, at the Supreme Court level. He didn't want to count illegals in the census. Legally now, they have to be counted. So the more people in California or New York City, which means New York, they're going to get a higher ratio of congressional seats. And that helps cement permanent power. I think that certain Democrats want to be the political power forever. That the Republican Party goes away, we run it, and we have nobody to balance us out. California is a supermajority Democratic state, and we're falling apart. My wife and I are looking to get out. I love it. I have a beautiful house. I look out over a canyon. I'm 5 minutes from the ocean. Simply love it. But we need to get out because it's falling apart. San Diego used to be a beautiful city. There's whole areas now I won't go into because of the crime and the homeless, the aggressive homeless. And this is what I think is going to happen to the nation as a whole if we allow people to be elected that have already started doing this. But so I do think that they do it for a couple of reasons, either naivete and ignorance, or they're doing it with malice aforethought, but that's to gain votes and apportionment in Congress, where they cement their power forever. I truly believe that. I mean, that's speculative, but you asked why I think they're doing it, and that's why I think they're doing it. You're going to change.
I think you've had a front row seat.
We are.
Thank you very much for your time. And as a fellow Christian, this progressive myth that people are basically good, and when given opportunity, they will only make moral progress and contribute, is a complete and total myth. If you believe that people are sinful, and if given potential opportunity, they could use that to do great harm and evil. And so at the basis of this is really a view of human nature. Are we all good? Then just welcome everyone and give them opportunity. Are we sinful and dangerous? Then if we permit that, we're going to self-destruct. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. We'll be praying for you and for your wife. Sounds like this very national issue, once again, has very, very personal implications. And just, I don't know, it's kind of devastating for me. Your kids and your grandkids most likely live somewhere near you, and you've spent your career securing a border. And now that it's not secure, you have to potentially vacate your home and your city and your state because it's not a place that you can safely reside, either because of crime or massive taxation, including property taxes, to pay for all of the social services for those who entered the country illegally. I mean, it is so maddening if you're paying attention.
I just got to add this. In Denver, apparently people don't mind it. The mayor and the city council cut fire and police protection. I think it was like $60 million, so they have more money for illegals. if that doesn't, like, if you have kids and go, hey, I'm good with that, less fire, less police protection for these people I don't even know. I will liken this real quick, and then we have to end. But you have a right to lock the doors in your house. You have the right to allow in who you want and tell them to leave if you want. Why don't we have that ability as a nation state? Why do I have to let people in that aren't good and be with my kids and my grandkids?
What you're looking at is you're looking at politicians who have police protection and they are immune from dealing with what the average person in a major city has to deal with, which is drug addiction, homelessness, uptick in criminal activity, entire parts of the city that are uninhabitable by sane people. Yeah. And I always say, if you are a progressive for open borders and you have a door on your home, you're a hypocrite.
Perfect point. That is exactly it. You lock your door at night. You don't let every stranger in. Somebody knocks on your door and says, I want to stay the night. You don't say, hey, I got a couple young doors here, but yeah, you can sleep in their room. You don't do that. Then you are a hypocrite.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, Christopher. I really, really appreciate it. And we didn't get to meet your wife, but tell her howdy as well. How many grandkids do you have?
Between the two of us, I think we're over 12.
Congratulations. I'm at 4. Congratulations to you and your family, buddy.
Thank you, my friend. Pastor, it was a pleasure. I hope to see you again.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely.
God bless. Bye.